It's now spread 3 blocks, and I've been traveling across the country on this book tour, and Portland by far is the largest occupy of anything. It was very impressive and inspiring to see. So we were just talking to, I don't know how many were there, a couple thousand people. So thank you for waiting. My apologies.
You're worth waiting. You don't need to apologize for doing it.
Yes, I do.
All that.
Yes, I do. Because I know Portland is a city that's always on time.
That's good.
And so I wasn't supposed to say anything, but can I say a couple of things? We can do this. Well, you know, we're living in a historic moment. I really believe this. I think I'm very excited about what's happening, and if you could come with me across the country, and I think I can fit most of you in the van, you would see just the most incredible thing going on right now. Not just in the Portlands and the Berkeleys and all the usual suspects, but in small towns and villages, these little occupies, 50 people, 100 people. There's a town there where I live in Michigan. They've got maybe 10,000 people in the entire area. They had 100 people out there on Saturday. That's 1% of the population of that small town. Or in other words, if we had a national demonstration on the mall in Washington, D.C., that'd be 3 million people. You know, and this was in a conservative small town in southwestern Michigan. So it's like Saturday night I was in a small town, Nevada City. You know where this is? Well, last week they told me people that occupy Grass Valley is what it was. And I'm like, wow, this is spread. This is spread with no organization, no leader, no spokesperson, no dues you have to pay. It's just been, you know, but it had to happen, right? Because eventually people were going to say enough. And how many of us have been saying for how long, when are people going to say enough is enough, right? When are they going to... And I knew it would just take a spark, just for something to happen. I've been down at Occupy Wall Street. I've been down there probably about a dozen times now in the last 6 weeks in New York City. And this is a movement that cannot be stopped because it affects so many people. And I was telling the media that were here a few minutes ago, Coin TV, or was that what they're called? Or, yeah, that's one of them. And KG something. Right. You know, it's like, they're like, who organized this? I'm saying, well, that Wells Fargo building down there, they organized it. You can just throw so many people out of their homes, and or have them living in fear of foreclosure, and that is millions are doing. 50 million people with no health insurance, 46 million living in poverty, right? 40 million adults who are functional illiterates in this country now. We have 40 million adults who cannot read and write above a 4th grade level. That's the country that we have. That's the country that they've created through their greed. And it was sooner or later the karma was going to come back to them, because they couldn't just stop with being just like simple greedy people. They just had to keep having more and more. They had to invent schemes on Wall Street to figure out how to rig the casino. How can we get the pension funds of people? How can we suck their 401ks? How can we, you know, because we just don't have enough with the billions we already have. We got to have more. And they were like addicts, like crack addicts. They couldn't get enough of it. And sooner or later, you know, the marshal rode into town, the people. And that's what's happening right now. The people are not going to tolerate this any longer. Now, I know for those of you who are more disciplined and have numerous degrees and are wondering, well, what's the end game here? What's the goal? What are the goals of this group? What are they doing? They're just camping out downtown Portland. Let me just say this. Number one, this had to start somewhere. We're still in 6 weeks old, this movement. The goals will happen. The agenda will take place. The political force of will happen, like a tsunami. Trust me on this, all right? But it has to start first, right? And so they've already had a number of incredible victories. Number one, this movement, I mean, it's changed the national discussion. The debate has changed. When's the last time you heard them talking about the debt ceiling? Right? Or the deficit? It's all gone now, right? This is what they talk about. They got even Boehner today. Even Boehner had to use Obama's words when he was asked about it today. John Boehner says, yes, I think the Occupy movement, you know, expresses the frustrations of people. It's like, wow. That was real balls to say that. Considering you helped to cause the frustration. And let me tell you, it ain't frustration anymore. You should have dealt with it when it was just frustration. You know? So, it's too late now. They could have, you know, because so much of the middle class supported them, supported capitalism, supported the, you know, the Horatio Alger thing of someday, yes, you know, anybody in America can make it. Anybody can be president. And they had people believing that for so long, they should have just went, you know, what was the game where you know, you say, okay, I'm out. You know, I can't remember the game show now. But it's like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? That's what it was. And you know, you go, I don't want to go to the next level. I'm happy with my $250,000 that I've already won. And they should have been happy. They should have been happy. After they foreclosed on the first 1 million homes. They should have went, okay, wow, that was friggin' cool. We have just destroyed the lives of 1 million people and chopped up their mortgages and sold them off, bundled them, put them into derivatives, and then took bets out against them. They betted. The same banks that did these mortgages betted that the mortgages would fail. The same, they had a different department that betted on it, and who better would know that it would all come collapsing down than them, because they created the foundation of it. Just utter, sheer, evil genius. And they should have taken the money and run after the first 1 million foreclosures. Then it went to 2 million. Then it went to 3 million. Then it went to 4 million. Right now, tonight, 10 million American homes. 10 million are either in foreclosure, facing foreclosure, or underwater and heading toward foreclosure. This is, if they don't understand the panic that will and the collapse of their way of life, then they are completely clueless. Because you cannot throw 10 million families out on the curb. You may be able to punk on the poor like you've always done. Those who have never been able to be a have, never able to have their own home, never able to send their kids to a good school. So they're already depressed and they understand how the fix is in for them. But now you've done it to the people who voted for your Republican politicians. You've done it to the middle class. You've done it to the people who've had these things, and now you want to take it from them? And you think they're just going to go away? What were they thinking? What were they thinking? They've completely overplayed their hand, and they have created their own doom. So when Coin with a K TV asked me who organized this, that's why I said Wells Fargo, Citibank, Chase, and all the rest of corporate America, and the 400 Americans who now have more wealth than 150 million Americans combined. 400, absolutely insane.
Is this about economic restructuring?
So, anyways, I got to just finish up here because I wasn't supposed to talk. I love coming to Portland. Do you know you live really in one of the greatest cities in this country? You know, I know you have your problems here. I know it has its flaws. I watched Portlandia. But no, I said to my sister's with me. I said, I got to tell you, if it weren't for where I live in Michigan, if I had to live someplace else, this is where I would live. mix of like the cool people that San Francisco has, but nobody here really wants to hurt you. Can I say that? You know, when you just run into crazy people here, they're just crazy. You can handle it. But it's, you know, it's because you allow for the crazy to be here. In other words, for people to be who they are, for people to be different, to be independent individuals. And what's so great about this is that there is such a town of individuals, and yet you collectively come together on so many things. Like you found the right mix of respecting the individual, the creativity that's in each of us, and yet what we decide to do here in Portland has to always go through the filter of what is best for the common good. That's really, I want to tell you that as an outsider, that's right, and you maybe take it for granted because you're here and everything seems, you know, whatever. But when you're from Michigan, when you're from a really depressed, I'm not the recession that you're going, but I mean a totally whacked out depression that we're living through in Michigan. You're blessed to be here. So I just want to tell you to have faith. Don't give up. Everybody's got to do their part. You don't have to go down and sleep in the park. There are plenty of Portlandians that will do that for you. But you do have to do something. Everybody has to do a little bit. And it no longer is just one or two or three people. It no longer is a Naomi Klein or an Amy Goodman or a Micheal Moore or whatever. It's now a million Amy Goodmans and a million Naomi Kleins and a million of me. And we're all in this together. And there are no leaders. We are all leaders of this movement. We're all leaders of this movement. And you have to lead in your neighborhood, at your school, at your church, wherever your group of people are. You have to be a leader. So that's why we're all leaders in this. And we're all spokespeople. Every person in here, I'm going to guarantee this, you know somebody, or maybe that somebody is yourself, who has had their health insurance taken away from them, who's had to take a cut in pay and can barely afford to get by. You know people who don't have enough food on the table. You know people whose jobs have been moved elsewhere by a company making billions of dollars. Everybody has a story to tell. And so tell those stories. Use your neighborhood. Use every device you have to be a human microphone. That's the beauty of the part of this movement that should never change. So I ask you to join with me as I join with you. Remember that you live in a liberal country. It is not just Portland.